The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.
Tonight, we will meet the director and subjects of a new TVO original documentary about Ontario Place as it faces redevelopment. Then, Steve Paikin speaks to two of the people behind Inside American Pie, a docu-concert about Don McLean's classic hit song. Finally, we will meet the British financial modeler who became a Microsoft Excel World Champion, nostalgia in the streets, and the king of the spreadsheets. That's all ahead on The Agenda. Ontario Place may be under redevelopment, but the park holds a special place for millions of visitors who swim, bike, and play on its grounds. And in her new TVO original documentary, Your Tomorrow, director Ali Weinstein shows how people continue to bring meaning and magic to one of Ontario's crown jewels. Joining us to discuss are Ali Weinstein herself and two of the film's participants, Julia Sasso and Peter Welsh. Welcome to our studios.
Thanks for having us.
All right, Ali, I'm going to start with you. Why did you want to make a film about Ontario Place?
Basically because I love Ontario Place. It's sort of as simple as that. I spent a lot of time there in the pandemic in 2020. I went there in the summer, and I hadn't been there in years since I was a kid.
Why not?
I mean, because I think that I always thought of it as like a family place, like for children, for younger people. And as I grew up and became a teenager, it just didn't really seem like, it just wasn't really on my radar. And then, I left home, moved away for university, just kind of, I don't think it was also really marketed as much anymore. Like it just wasn't really something on my radar. And then eventually, as we all know, Ontario Place shut down in 2012. And to be honest, I wasn't really paying that much attention to it then. And it was only in 2020 that I found myself just like wandering down to the waterfront. Everyone was trying to be outside more because we couldn't congregate in indoor spaces. And it was so magical. There were so many just pathways through forests and old rides and beaches and all the beautiful old futuristic architecture. And there were like art installations that people had put up. And so it just became this magical place that my friends and I would go to as our like pandemic gathering spot.
Okay.
And yeah.
I am curious. So Julia and Peter are just a small portion of the participants who are in this documentary. You cover a lot of ground and a lot of people. How did you come across these two?
Well, it's interesting. So Julia actually has a special role. She's in the film saying some really amazing things about what the place means to her. But in those pandemic years where I was spending a lot of time there was one fateful day on the beach that I was lying there with my then boyfriend, Benny. And I saw Julia, and she was like wearing this shirt that was like had all these reggae concert listings on it. And I chatted with her about it. And we were just talking. And as time went on the beach, more people were coming to the beach, and Julia seemed to know all these people, like from different ages, different backgrounds. They were all coming together. And I thought, oh, there's a community here. These are regulars.
Well, I'm curious, is that the same story that you remember meeting Ali? And tell me about this community.
Do you remember that moment?
I do. I know which T-shirt I was wearing.
Yeah.
It was from Summerfest 85 or something like that, and it had all the band names on the back. My memory was when we started talking, I was standing, Ali was lying down or sitting, and people were coming, and I was going, oh, hi, Dan. Oh, hi, Jill. Oh, hi, so-and-so. And she's like, you know all these people. And I met so many people, and as a former teacher, it was important to me to remember their names. So I started writing them down.
Okay.
And I've got a notebook with over 100 names. These are people that I saw regularly. I swam with, talked to. It was my new community. I never had so many friends in my life. Suddenly I had all these interesting people. Who
Yeah.
all did something different.
Very nice. Peter, we were just talking off camera. You two didn't know each other, but you guys knew of each other. Faces, regular faces on Ontario Place.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to hear Julia talk about her community that focused around the beach. And I had a similar community, but it was a little more inland,
Yes.
you know, up around the silos and the wooded areas. But a very similar, I didn't make lists of names, but but I did make a lot of friends that I would regularly see there. But I definitely recognize Julia from those days. Yeah.
Tell me about the community that you're talking about specifically, because you are a wildlife photographer. Is that kind of the group of people that you're hanging out with?
Somewhat. I mean, a lot of people that I met there would go there for birding and other wildlife. It wasn't just birds. A lot of other wildlife at Ontario Place. But there was just a lot of people that just went there just to decompress, just to step outside, just step away from life downtown, all that. You know, you only have to look across the water and all of a sudden it's busy, cars, everything else. And Ontario Place was just so many people.
I am curious, when did you start going to Ontario Place?
I think it was when it opened up again. I can't remember the year. I wasn't doing a lot of wildlife photography there. I just went there more out of curiosity because I moved to Toronto shortly after. I guess it closed. I moved to Toronto, I think, in 2013. So I didn't really know much about it, and then it closed, so I didn't know really anything about it, other than that there was a sign that I could see as I passed along Lakeshore Boulevard. But then it opened up. Do you remember the year?
It was around 2015 or 2016 that they kind of like opened the gates of Ontario Place without much active programming at all inside. Suddenly it became just like a public park that you were allowed to walk through.
And that was cool.
Yeah.
Because when they first opened it up, you could go everywhere.
What were your fondest memories?
At that moment or in general?
At that moment, yeah.
At that moment, it was just being a kid again. You know, just being 6. Just going exploring. It was just, and people didn't stop doing that, even though eventually Ontario Place figured out, whoa, maybe we should board these areas up. People really shouldn't go in there. Fair enough, but people, all the time, I would see people, young and old, just exploring, climbing over stuff, just being a kid again. That was it.
When did you start going?
Well, I had been to Ontario Place back in the 70s when I moved to Toronto, also moved to Toronto. And I had been on the Flume ride and then several concerts at the Forum. Used to see the National Ballet of Canada, and, you know, all kinds of bands on that revolving stage, and then later, whatever the next iteration of the concert venue was, I can't remember what it was called. And then it closed for many years, and it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. I cycle a lot, and I was looking for places to go, and I met up with a friend, and she said, "Oh, have you been to Ontario Place? It's really interesting." I've never even thought of it. I went the very next day, and I cycled by the beach and went, oh my goodness. Took my shoes and socks off. The next day, I was back in my swimsuit.
All right.
And that was it.
I want to play a short little snippet of the doc. So let's have a look at that.
水风景一样，可是许多的地方都变了，跟我们几年前真的有差。人事物都会变，不管时空环境，可是景色不变。哦，终于有一条船了。
There we go. That's that scenery right there, right? Water, some sunshine, some nice quiet, some birds. Now, for those listening on podcasts, there was a couple sitting by the water discussing how people and things change, but the scenery stays the same. Now, Ali, I'm curious, making a documentary means you must be highly selective. There are lots of footage that did not make it into this doc.
Yeah.
Why did you want to include that part of the film?
Well, Grace and Rocky, the couple that sit there on their Muskoka chairs daily, I met them very early on in the process of making the film. They were just there on those Muskoka chairs, and we were just getting some shots of the landscape and shot them from afar. And then we got a little closer and told them what we were doing and asked if we could shoot them a little bit closer. And then afterwards we spoke to them, and Grace said a really beautiful thing to me. She said, we come here every day and we never see the same view twice because the lake is always changing. And I just thought, this is incredible, and maybe since they're such regulars, like maybe we can see them through the seasons. I knew this film would sort of show the different seasons that Ontario plays, and so we kept filming them every time we saw them. They appear in the film a few times, and I mean, in a way, I feel like they kind of show the passage of time through the film and their own personal story. While it's very short, like each scene is not that long, but they also have their own journey of like thinking about where they want to live and where they might want to end up as they get older and they're in retirement. And so their reflections on what they're looking at kind of mirror their own personal life a little bit, talking about change and the passage of time. And I just thought it was really poetic and beautiful.
All right, before I come to you guys, I do want to show another clip. This I want for our viewers and listeners just to sit back. When you talk about that importance of having green space, I just want our viewers to sit back and relax and enjoy the calm in this next clip. Very, very nice. All right. For those listening on podcast, there were scenes of overgrown parts of the West Island buildings, and it ended with a participant of the doc tending to some flowers and a bee. Peter, I want to come to you first. When some people see that space, they see a place that needs fixing up. And that was probably, when you first started going there, it was when it was closed down. You probably saw the same thing. You described some of those parts. When you see it, what do you see?
In the closest comparison I can put it to is like an adventure playground, which is something that's maybe more British than Canadian. Adventure playgrounds that kids can go play. They're not fixed up. They don't have off-the-shelf parts and components. It reflected a lot on the film. I only saw the film when it got released on TVO Docs a few days ago. But it's just a place, and I mean this in the best sense of the word, it's a place to go and do nothing. It's a place to just be yourself. It wasn't fixed up. And not to say it should have stayed in that condition. I'm not really suggesting that, although I think that would have been great. But it was just, because it wasn't fixed up, people would just go there, I don't know, goof around. People would just go there. I mean, literally, one of my favorite scenes in the movie was a 5-second clip of this young man playing music and dancing. That was it. I mean, the whole film is great, but that 5 seconds, I saw that happen so many times. People going there and singing. It's not often I go to, maybe ever, that I go to any other park in Toronto and I hear someone literally singing out loud to themselves.
Letting loose and singing.
Just letting loose. Yeah. Someone with their music dancing. And that happened, I mean, you only captured that one 5-second moment, but that happened all the time.
All right.
Yeah.
Julia, how about your take? When you see those images, what do you see?
I see a wild place. For me, when I went to Ontario Place, I wasn't in Toronto, anymore. I could go 15 minutes on my bicycle straight downhill, and I was at the lake. And all I saw was lake, sky, grass, trees, birds, beavers, herons, minks, swans, foxes. So wildlife, people just chilling, doing their thing. It was amazing, you know. I don't have a cottage. I don't have a car. This was a respite for me. Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, for sure.
Because this to me is also really important when you started mentioning some of the species, because I do photography. I'm not a professional photographer, but I have to take photos for work, for going around the entire GTA, or mostly Mississauga. I do environmental consulting and site analysis. So I will take photos of wildlife when I go to someone's site, and when I go off-site, or I will go to a nearby habitat area, Mississauga, Orangeville, wherever it is. So I've been birding and photography for 10, 20 years. Ontario Place was like nothing else.
How so?
The density, the sheer numbers of species, and then the volume of those species. I could go somewhere like the Riverwood Conservancy, which is a fantastic place to go witness wildlife. And I'll go there and I'll spend 2 hours and I'll see 10 species of birds, let's say. And then I'll go to Ontario Place and I'll see 15 species of birds. And a lot of them.
Right.
And some of them extremely rare, uncommon birds in such a small, look at the size of Ontario Place and the size of the Riverwood Conservancy, it's not even comparable. So in such a small little dense area, the species volume and diversity was like nothing I've ever seen.
Okay, very interesting. Ali, I'm curious, you described this as a love letter to Ontario Place. Reflecting on that now, how do you feel about that statement?
I think when I first decided I wanted to make this film, it was meant very much to be a love letter. I really wanted to capture the feeling that I got when I was at Ontario Place every time I went there. And I think that I did, but as I was filming, the redevelopment became more present than I expected to. It was all kind of creeping in a little bit faster than I expected it to. And so that aspect of things wound its way into the film more than I initially intended. And some of the people I was filming with, a different bird watcher, Francesca, who Pete is in a scene with Francesca in the film, she became very heavily involved with activism work to keep Ontario Place public. So that type of stuff wound into the film. And I think now, just sort of knowing that the West Island has now been demolished, all 850 trees there demolished, so all these birds that Pete's talking about no longer have that space to go. When I watch the film now, it feels like it's still a love letter, but some people have told me it also feels like a bit of a eulogy, which makes me feel sad, but it's the truth. It's the truth. And I think that my intention with calling the film Your Tomorrow, which is something that comes from the original 1971 promotional material for Ontario Place, where it describes itself as a place to show you your creativity, your work, your tomorrow, is very futuristic and future-looking for the public. And I chose that title as sort of like a question mark, like meant to show people, okay, here's this space that we have, and what do we want for our tomorrow? And so, yeah, I mean, I would be lying if I said that now that title doesn't really have a different meaning for me, because now that more has happened at Ontario Place and what we love about it has been taken away, it doesn't feel as much of a question mark anymore. It feels more of a statement. And it's a sad statement in my mind, but there is still a question of how we want that space and other places to be built for us, and what we want to go there for the benefit of citizens in the city and the province.
We have a minute left, and I'm curious, I want to know, will you go back? once it reopens? And I want to go around the table. I'll start with Peter. Will you go back when it reopens?
If I go back, because I post a lot of my photos and stuff online, if I go back, it'll be to show the tragedy. It'll spend a day at Ontario Place and show what I don't see, what I do see. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me when it reopens. One of the remarkable things about Ontario Place in the years that I went there is all the years I never saw a single house sparrow or pigeon. Now these are birds that are all over Toronto. You can't go anywhere without seeing them.
Right.
I anticipate that when I go back, all I'm going to see is house sparrows and pigeons, which are non-native birds. So this kind of indicates what I fear will happen. But will I go back? I can't even go down to the waterfront and look in that direction because it's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Julia?
I might go back to spray paint on the windows of the spa. I have no interest in going inside the spa, paying money for the spa. I mean, I'm still going down there. I'm still going to the lake. I'm going to, some of us go to Trillium Park. Some of us go to further west, Humber Bay Park West to swim. It's all we have left. So yeah, that's my answer.
All right, Ali, you get the last word on that.
I don't intend to go to the spa. I don't have any interest in going to the spa there. What I might go back for is to see films at the Cinesphere, because the plan is that the Cinesphere and the pods are going to remain. And the Cinesphere is an absolutely incredible cinema. It's apparently one of Christopher Nolan's favorite cinemas in the world. He has talked about it before. It is insane to get that view and like those seats and the surround sound in there. It's so special, and I actually can't wait for it to reopen to see films in there again. However, I think it's going to be a very different experience going there than it used to be, because when that's right next door to a huge towering building that's enclosed this formerly outdoor natural space, I do fear like the sort of sadness and tragedy, as Pete put it, of just seeing this place I used to love so much every time I go to the cinema. But I don't know. It's tough because I want the Cinesphere to remain active and support that when it reopens.
All right, well, we are going to leave it there. Ali, Peter, Julia, thank you so much for sharing your story. And beautiful doc. I recommend people to check it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you came of age musically in the 1970s, you could not help but be a fan of a song that just sounded so different from everything else on Top 40 radio. The chorus was simple, but the verses were so mysterious. Well, a group of Prince Edward Islanders has put that song under the microscope, and the result is both a fantastic and fascinating play called Inside American Pie, which is playing at the CAA Theatre in downtown Toronto till the end of the month. Joining us now, having driven their Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry, let's welcome the show star and co-creator Mike Ross and another cast member, Alicia Toner. Great to have you two here.
Thank you for having us.
I was telling you just before we started here, I went to see the play the other day. I was so inspired and so moved after it was over that I thought, I got to get you guys in here and talk about this thing. Where did the idea for the show come from in the first place?
Well, I mean, it goes all the way back to being 12 years old. And, you know, along the while in my life, certain songs, it still happens, have stopped me dead in my tracks. You know, you just go, what is that? And so that happened to me when I was 12, but back then you didn't have access to music.
Wait a second, when you were, this song came out in 1971?
Yeah, it did, yeah.
But so you were not 12 in 1971.
No, not when it came out, but when I heard it for the first time on the radio,
All
which would have been 1987 if
Okay.
I was 12.
Got it.
And yeah, it stopped me dead in my tracks, and I got the cassette tape, and I annoyed my parents because we just listened to it over and over again, and I had to learn every single lyric, and then life went by, and I became a musician that worked in theater. And then, yeah, I make these shows. We call them docu-concerts, where we sort of, do a documentary thing, but there's like fulsome music concert performances all throughout, woven it. And it was kind of a no-brainer. I'd always been a fan of the song, and I knew that there was so much to unpack about the details in the song, and it's very cryptic and mysterious.
If I may say, one of the angelic voices in your cast is sitting beside you.
That's right.
And I want to find out when this song first came into you, because I'm going to pull rank on you.
Okay.
I was 11 when this song came out, so
Okay.
I remember it well when
All
it
right.
first came out and blasted onto the musical scene.
Yeah.
But you were a long way away from being born, so when did it come into your
Well,
life?
I was born the year Mike heard it for the first
Oh
time.
my God.
So, but I was probably around 10 or 11 when I heard it for the first time. I was actually Don McLean. I had a Don McLean CD that lived in my CD player, and I would play it on loop over and over again. I think American Pie was the first song I ever learned how to badly play on guitar.
Why do you think it resonated with you so much?
That's a really good question. I think, I think his lyrics are timeless. I think the themes within it are timeless. And it's wild to me that it would resonate with a 10, 11-year-old as well as a 60-year-old, but it does.
Yeah.
And there's something so universal about his writing with this song specifically that really resonates with any age, I think.
Don McLean's almost 80 years old. You ever met him?
Never met him.
Does he know about your show?
I don't believe so. I don't think he knows. I don't know what he would think of this show,
Oh, come on, he'd love it. Are you kidding?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
But we're, like I say in the show, we're interpreting it, right? And so whether or not we're right or wrong in terms of what he thinks it was, I don't know where he would be at with all that.
Well, okay, let's take a step back here because ostensibly, and I guess I gotta say, for those who don't know, and how can you not know this song? But anyway, for those who don't know, this is ostensibly, Mike, a song about 3 rock and roll stars who had a very tragic flight. Why don't you just fill in the blanks?
That's right.
there?
It begins there.
Yeah.
It was the plane crash, February 3rd, 1959. Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper all perished in a plane crash in Clear Lake, Iowa. And so the story of the song from Don McLean's point of view is everything was good in his world, and he was a happy American, and then this happened, and it changed his life forever. There was something... it was a loss of innocence, that something could be taken away that meant so much to him. And the interesting thing about unpacking the song is that people think that that's what the song is about, and it begins there. But that's really like verse 1, verse 2, but then there's 4 more verses after that where we kind of unpack in a cryptic way what the 1960s meant to him, to people that were coming of age during that time. And so it's the catalyst for a further exploration of pop culture all through the 1960s, all the way until the moment he released the song, really.
Shall we look at you guys at work? I think we should.
All right.
Sheldon, if you would, let's see some of these two at work.
This will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die.
I'm 11 years old again. just so
It's funny
wonderful.
when I heard Alicia said that she's known the song since she was 11, and I remember when we rehearsed the show for the first time and she sang that verse, I thought to myself, oh, she knows this song. There's little details in Don McLean's performance of the song that, we're all trying to do our own thing, but you also want to keep the greatness of his performance. And I could hear that she's got a lot of listens in on this song because those little tiny...
Got my 10,000 hours.
Yes, exactly.
You do.
Yeah.
How many instruments do you play, incidentally?
Well,
No, at all. No, you play, well, what I saw at the show, you played them all well.
well, in the show, I played the guitar, the bass, the violin, and the piano, I suppose, for a moment. I play a few other instruments. I play the drums. I play, in high school growing up, I played the saxophone. And, but yeah, I mean, I can play a few. I can play a few instruments. Yeah.
I did notice. Now, okay, here's the tightrope I'm trying to walk here, because I don't want to give away all the good lines and all the good stories.
Fair enough.
But we do want to give people just sort of a hint of what they can expect if they go to see this show.
Yeah.
So should we do a few explainers here?
Okay.
Okay. For 5.5 decades, people have been trying to figure out, what does Don mean when he's like, what does this line mean, and who's the this and who? Okay. So when Don McLean, Mike, was asked, what do the lyrics mean?
Yeah.
What was his response?
Well, I think he said something like, what does it mean? He said, it means I never have to work another day in my life.
Exactly.
Which is a great answer.
Exactly. Yes, it
I mean,
is.
he famously refused to answer questions about it, and then recently he answered more, but in some ways, once you release a great piece of art into the world, I think it's open to interpretation, even if that's not the same as what the creator had in mind. Like it takes on its own life, and then you get to have that incredible journey of trying to figure it out for yourself, and that's what the show does. It's our interpretation of what it is, and it's rich and it's poetic and fascinating. And when you're somebody like a great artist like Don McLean, you can make something that people can keep on digging down through the layers of, and it's more rewarding the deeper you go, and then if you can deepen that experience with actual musical performances, as we do in the show, then it becomes like a sensory thing that hits you on two levels, right? Like it hits you in your brain, because you're interpreting poetry, really. And then it also hits you in your heart, because you get this music event that kind of just hits you viscerally without your brain. And those two things are kind of going back and forth. And so it can be pretty satisfying.
Yeah. One of the really different things about this song is that it starts off very slowly. And then it starts to rev it up and rock and roll in the middle. And then it comes full circle and ends very slowly and very poetically again by the end. When you're growing up, I don't know about you, but I just never heard a song like that before. How about you? Did that resonate?
I think that's probably one of the reasons it hits so hard. I mean, I love songs that, growing up, I would connect to artists that made me cry. And I think that's what I loved about Don McLean is the earnestness in his voice too. I mean, I was obsessed with the song Vincent, and I think that's part of what you mean. It's just this kind of roller coaster of emotion that he takes you on through the entire thing.
Is there a lyric in there you love the most?
I think it's at the end. The Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. They took the last train for the coast. Yeah,
and there is some discussion in the song about who the reference to the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost might be.
Yeah.
And I got to say, when I was growing up, I always thought it was JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King. But there are other interpretations of that as well. Eh? What do you think,
well,
Mike?
it could be the Holy Trinity, like Don was a Catholic.
Yeah.
It could be, and in the end, I think my interpretation is that it's taking us back to the three that died in the plane crash. They're like, in poetry parlance, taking a train to the coast going west kind of means you're gone forever.
Yeah.
So that's a reference to the death of something or someone. And so I think that, but it's really up to the person who's listening, right? That's what's amazing about it.
Okay, let's do a few more of these. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Okay, why a Chevy? Where's the levee? And what do you mean it's dry? Discuss.
Well, Mike has a great bit about this. Do you want to take that? Because you have a really good interpretation of two avenues.
Yeah, there's two different things. I mean, it's too long to go into all of it, but there was a Chevrolet commercial in 1953, Dinah Shore. It was a jingle, and she says, drive your Chevrolet along the levee, and all your problems will go away. So it's kind of like this is what you need to do to be happy in America. And so Don could be responding to that jingle, which was very popular, and saying, I did what you told me, but when I got to the levee, like you told me to do, The levee was dry.
Dry meaning?
Dry meaning empty. Right? So there was
the promise unfulfilled.
I was disappointed by what I found when I followed your instructions on how to achieve the American dream.
I like the second one better, though.
The second one is that you carry on to whiskey and rye, and we all say whiskey and rye. I'm giving too much away.
A little bit.
But that's okay.
There's so much in there.
Yeah.
You can give a few baubles out here.
Okay, so whiskey and rye. There was a town about 15 minutes away from Don's hometown of New Rochelle, New York, called Rye, New York. And
that's
so
where the New York Rangers actually have their practice facility. That's
right.
why I've heard of Rye, New York.
Right. So it may not even be whiskey and rye. It might be whiskey in rye, because there was a bar in Don's hometown of New Rochelle called the Levee. So if the levee was closed, you might have to go to Rye to have your drink. And so the good old boys drinking whiskey in rye, singing "This Will Be the Day That I Die."
I never understood that lyric, because it'd be like saying, good old boys were drinking Coke and cola.
That's right.
Like you wouldn't say that.
It doesn't make sense.
So drinking whiskey and rye, but whiskey in rye. Now, has anybody checked Don's original lyrics to see what they say, or are there original lyrics to be checked?
All I know is that there was a auctioned off verse that didn't make its way into the song, and that was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago that this happened. I don't know that there's the handwritten lyrics anywhere. I do know that when you Google the lyrics to American Pie, there are things in it that are questionable. So whoever initially kind of put it out there into the world may have been wrong about a few things. Lenin and Marx being one of them. They spell Lenin Lenin as in Vladimir Lenin, right?
But it could be.
It could be that. It could be. But I have trouble with a song that's so specifically about a time and a place. Would we just be talking about Soviet history? So I think that John Lennon makes more sense to me than Vladimir Lenin reading a book on Marx. John Lennon was... he had anti-capitalist views and was a left-leaning guy, and Imagine is kind of a socialist anthem in some ways, right? And so, I think that it's the eye of the beholder.
Alicia, let's get political here.
Uh-oh.
We are in a very fraught time as it relates to our relationship with the United States, and you are singing the quintessentially American song about Miss American Pie.
Yep.
Any pushback on that when you perform this song or anything like that?
Well, there hasn't been. But, I think that art rises above all politics. I think that artists are the great connectors in times like this. And I think, we don't have a problem with Americans. We have a problem with a few very specific people down there.
One guy in particular.
Well, there's a couple. But
who else is on the list? Maybe JD's on the list too.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think in these times, the most crucial thing that we can do as artists is come together and lift each other up and cross borders, because we don't hate anybody down there. And from what I'm hearing, they don't hate us either.
Yeah.
And it's always been throughout history, in these tumultuous times and these cyclical times that we go through, it's always been artists that are the truth tellers, that are calling things out, and that are bringing people together. And so even though we are singing a song about American Pie, even though it's a very quintessential American song, it's a group of Canadians doing it. Mm-hmm. It was homegrown in Prince Edward Island, and I think that's a beautiful melding of two very different cultures right now, of Canada and America.
And if I can jump in, Steve,
Please.
just to say that it's a song about saying goodbye to an America that you thought you knew.
Mm-hmm.
Well, aren't we doing that these days?
Well, so it's a very interesting thing to take apart that song. Like you might see in the title that it's a celebration of something American, and it is, and that it's a great work of art, but it's also like the subject matter. And like all, great protest songs, they invite you in, to your point earlier, that he starts the song so slowly and he invites you into something, and then the music has such joy. But what it's actually saying is, things are changing. I'm saying goodbye to something, and so you're letting go. And so the song it's a good time to be taking a look at this song.
It's interesting. We are obviously encountering this show for the first time, but this show, it goes back. You started the show during COVID. What's the story there?
Yeah. It goes back even further. We did a cabaret version of it at the Soul Pepper Theater Company in 2015, where it was just more of a casual sort of throwing down of what things might. And then Sarah Wilson and I, who's my co-creator, we wrote a fulsome version of the show.
Do you know Sarah very well?
Yeah, she's my writing partner. We've been making shows together forever. And so she and I made this version called Inside American Pie during COVID at this little music hall that we bought in Prince Edward Island. And we had to make a small show, and because we were capped at 50 people. And so we got to work on trying to, make something that would make people feel good, that would be nostalgic, because it was like, that's what people were looking for during that time. And we kind of had no idea that it would have the life that it has had.
Well, how did it get to Toronto?
Okay, so last summer, there's a gentleman that vacations in PEI. His name's Derek Sewell. Derek's brother, Brian Sewell, is the executive producer of the Mervish Company. And so Brian was visiting Derek. Derek dragged him to the show. He saw the show, loved it. That was a Friday. Monday, we were on a conference call, and they said, we want you to come and play it at one of our theaters. And so it was like, oh my God, okay.
That's how showbiz works.
It is. It's random, You work so hard in this way, and then it sort of falls into your lap in a different way.
Very cool. Do you have plans to get inside another big popular song and continue this format? Because the format really works well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of ideas on the table. We've made a bunch of different shows over the years that have this same format. We've made one about the Voyager Golden Record, which is the NASA spacecraft that they affixed a Golden Record album to with Earth's greatest hits. Made a show about that. We've made a show about famous artists. Alicia was in it, that were all in jail, and it, the idea of imprisonment and art, and so I mean, we've got a bunch of ideas on the table. Alicia and I made a show last summer called Ladies of the Canyon that takes a look at the Laurel Canyon scene in the 60s and 70s and the rise and fall of that, and people really love that one. So there's lots of ideas on the table, and it's a fun format to work in, and I've been doing it for a while now, so I feel like we've got a good beat on how the machine of it works.
Awesome. I think under the fair dealing copyright rules of this country, we're allowed to do 15 seconds of this song.
Okay.
So shall we do it?
Let's do it.
Just the chorus?
Yeah, okay.
Lead us.
All right.
Bye, Miss American Pie.
Come on, Alicia.
Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this'll be the day that I die. This'll be the day that I die.
Okay, that was just the greatest moment in my 43-year journalistic career. Thank you very much for that.
You're so welcome.
Mike Ross, Alicia Toner. The song is American Pie. The play is Inside American Pie. It's at the CAA Theater till the end of the month, and I can't thank you two enough for coming in today and helping us out with this.
Thank you, Steve.
We think of Excel spreadsheets as an office tool, useful for everything from planning a budget to performing more complex data analytics. But in Las Vegas, Nevada, last December, data nerds from all over the globe came together for the Microsoft Excel World Championships, where a British financial modeler based in Toronto was crowned the new champion. And what, pray tell, is this championship all about? Well, let's ask the man himself. His name is Michael Jarman, and he is Director of Financial Modeling at Operas, and he's the Excel Spreadsheet World Champion. Michael, it's great to meet you.
Oh, thank you very much. It's great to be on.
I can tell from that accent you're not from here.
No, it's been, in the media, a few places have forgotten that, I'm not actually Canadian yet. I'm hopefully applying this year. But, yes, originally from the UK, but I've been in Toronto for about 8 years now.
8 years now. Okay. And where do you live?
Just downtown.
Downtown?
Yeah.
Okay. How did you get to be so proficient with Microsoft Excel?
It's a good question. So I think it's, at Operas, it's pretty much what I've done over the last 10 years. Now, not so much now, as in many jobs, when you get a bit more senior, you sort of do less of the day-to-day modeling work. But certainly for the first 5-6 years of my career was pretty much what I was doing day in, day out. So, if you spend hundreds, thousands of hours doing something, you eventually get pretty good at it.
How did you know there was a competition for people like you who are good at this?
Yeah, so there was an older competition called Model Off, which I've also won a few years ago. I found out through that because one of my colleagues had also won it previously when I just started, a woman called Hilary Smart. So I found out about the weird and wonderful world of competitive Excel through her. But that old competition died in 2020, and it sort of very much was much lower key. Like, people just go to a Microsoft boardroom and essentially do an exam. It's nothing like what we have today. So yeah, this new competition, like, a lot of the old people who are in it sort of were familiar with sort of the people who set it up. So we found out that way, and yeah, now we're on television.
Well, I was going to say, the old one was not televised, but this one is.
Yes.
So now you're a star.
Apparently.
Shall we see you doing your thing?
Absolutely.
Let's do that. Sheldon, roll it if you would.
Let's get a cheer for Michael Jarman on the screen.
What's he got going on?
I mean, he's doing well.
Is anything gonna happen?
Can anybody throw a Leroy Jenkins out in the last few seconds?
Leroy Jenkins!
Come on, Leroy!
Right.
Michael Jarman!
Look at that! Look
takes
at that!
the win!
Look at that!
Oh.
Michael Jarman! Michael Jarman!
All those years of training have come to this moment in
the
2024.
World Championship!
You're a bit of a rock star there, dude.
Yeah, it's nice being in sort of, even though it's not like, it's a few hundred people in the arena, and hopefully we'll get bigger as the years go, but it's nice being full of people who are sort of as passionate about this sort of thing as, you know, as I am.
What was the moment like?
Yeah, it was incredible. Like, I sort of been putting quite a bit of pressure on myself to win. Like, I'd come second 2 of the last 3 years, got knocked out in the semis the other year. So I've always been there or thereabouts, and the field is constantly improving at like a vast rate. Like, what people do now, like the top 20 would do now, would win 2 or 3 years ago. So
okay, that's what I got to follow up on that, because can I make a horrible admission to you here?
Yeah.
I don't know how to use Excel. I really don't. So when they were showing the screen there of what it is that you were doing, I had no idea what you were doing. So what were you doing?
It is feedback we get quite a bit. So the finals case was World of Warcraft themed. So essentially they'd sort of partner up with Blizzard to sort of use WoW, and you're essentially just modeling 20 characters as they go around,
Michael,
do quests.
I have no idea what you just said. So take me through it slowly. When you're competing, what are you actually doing?
So it's always some kind of game. So the old competition, and the same people still run a similar competition, which is more based in finance. You cannot make depreciation and debt modeling sexy or interesting, right? Like, it's amazing they've managed to get this far with just Excel in general. So it's usually some sort of game which is generally meant to be a bit more approachable for the average layman like yourself, who you know, might have used Excel a little bit, might not have done, but as opposed to being more like finance themed, it's generally like, can you model Euchre or Minesweeper or Connect 4 battleships?
What's Minesweeper?
You know, the one where you click all the mines on I don't know if they still have it, but certainly on the old Windows machines they did.
Oh, okay.
So essentially a game like that, and it will start off with something fairly simple. So, you know, in the example of, you know, I don't know, Monopoly, if you roll a dice, where do you end up? And then by the end of the round, it's like, okay, here are 37 dice rolls. What happens in the game?
Gotcha. Did you train for this?
Yeah, you do. It's, although my job sort of has allowed me to get to the level of Excel I am, like, there's still a lot of weird and wonderful techniques that you sort of have to use in the competition that never come up in my day-to-day work. Like, there's quite a few questions where you have to navigate some sort of map. One of the semi-final questions was you're in a temple that's like, is a maze, and you have to get through and get the golden idol, whatever it was. And you never have to do that at work, like sort of go through a map. So you have to learn how to do that and sort of, you know, train up into how to answer the typical kind of questions that come up. But there still is, like, you can never fully prepare for everything.
So when you're doing this all day at work, and then you come home, and are you literally practicing hours when you get home to be ready for this?
So in the run-up, I was doing quite a bit of practice, like, you know, a couple, 3 hours a day. But I would say my practice was very much sort of only concentrated in this sort of running out 5 to 6 weeks. Although there are rounds of the competition that are ongoing and running throughout the year, the only bits that really sort of matter for getting the final result happen in the last 5 or 6 weeks. So I could sort of concentrate my efforts there, and then the rest of the year I can not relax, but certainly, take it a bit easier.
Did preparing for this competition and doing the competition actually make you better at your day job?
I think so. There's certainly, although, for the example of the map, I'm never going to have to do that at work, hopefully. But there are certainly some advanced things in Excel that I've learned, both sort of by doing things myself and also, by learning from other people in the community. There's loads of people who are really sort of keen to share their knowledge and ideas about how to approach these weird and wonderful problems in Excel that are usually a lot more difficult than what somebody would typically use Excel for. Like, it really is trying to push the envelope of what you can do in the software. So, there's stuff in there where 2 or 3 years ago I'd be like, I wouldn't touch that with a barge pole, whereas now I just sort of, I'm very happy and comfortable doing that at work.
Who are you competing against? What kind of person?
It is a variety of people. Like, there are a lot of people in finance. I think there certainly is an overlap there, and that's why the same people run the financial championship. But equally, there's people who use Excel for different things. Those who use it for sort of storing data and like looking at data, sort of accountants who I suppose is similar to finance, and then just some people who for some reason are sort of coders who don't really do much Excel in their day-to-day job, but they sort of want to find a new avenue to compete in and think it's good fun.
When we showed the clip, it looked like it was overwhelmingly men. Is it mostly men who compete in this thing?
Yeah, unfortunately it is. There are a few women who sort of get to the high level. I think this year in the semi-final we had 2 women who were unfortunately knocked out. Sort of I mentioned my colleague Hilary Smart. She's, I think, the only female sort of world champion of any sort of format of competitive Excel. So yeah, it's certainly something we'd like to see improve because at the moment it is a little bit too male heavy.
Was this live on television?
Yeah, it was on ESPN3 in the US, and then everywhere else watched it on YouTube. So it was live. I can't remember how much of the whole stream was on ESPN because the whole stream is about 7 hours long because there's a university championship as well for students. So for any students looking to get involved and learn a different sort of skill, because Excel isn't going anywhere in my opinion, so it's always good to learn. So they have that for the first few hours, and then I think sort of the last 2 hours would be the sort of 2 semi-finals and the main final. And that was on ESPN3, I think.
So could your friends and family watch it as it was really happening?
They could, yes, a few did. I think the time zone is still not particularly kind for most of the world. I think it is something like being in Vegas on Pacific time. I think it's Pacific time. Over in Toronto, it was already getting to be like midnight, 1 a.m. when it's finishing. In the UK, it's like 5, 6 a.m. So as much as my friends and family love me, I don't think they're going to get up to watch that. So yeah, hopefully they can get a time earlier in the day, just because I think it certainly would be sort of watch more if they did.
What's with the jacket, Michael?
Yeah, so Microsoft sent me this last year. I think they sent it to all the finalists. And I genuinely wear this around town. Like, I think it's lovely. It's actually, you get a lot of sorts of, corporate stash or whatever, and it's sort of the quite poor quality material. This is genuinely one of the nicest jackets I own. Like, it's really nice material. So, and they sent it to all the finalists, and I've sort of been wearing it around ever since. And, I keep saying I need to get a gold star sewed into here like they do with the World Cup, but I haven't got around to it yet.
Do you like the logo?
Yeah. It's and there's sort of a, I don't know if I can show on the back.
Wow, that's nice. Yeah.
So it's it's an interesting piece. Like, I do get people stopping in the street who are like, "Is that a real thing?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is."
Now that's not the only prize you got for winning the championship.
No, not at all.
You've got a very sweet-looking prize.
You certainly do. Yeah, absolutely. Make sure we get it the right way up. Here we are. You win a wrestling-style belt, which. This is relatively new. They've only done it this year and last year, but I think they're going to keep doing it. I get to keep the belt, though, which is nice. They decided that this would be a sensible thing to give away to people.
And you didn't have to go into the octagon or anything to get that, right?
No. It's certainly the only way I'm ever going to get a belt like this. I don't think I back myself as a MMA fighter, to be honest.
And are they going to engrave your name in that at some point?
Probably yes. Alongside the star, I probably do need to get that engraved. But yeah. I do just want it.
That's a very sweet thing. Now, when do you have to defend your championship?
So next December, as I said, the season's already started. There's sort of various battles throughout the year. They call them the Roast to Las Vegas to essentially qualify into the main draw. So that's just started. But yeah, the main sort of piece of my title defence will be the online rounds, which are late October, and then the in-person finals in Vegas in December.
Do you think you can repeat as champion?
I think I certainly can. I think you do need a bit of luck on the day. I think pretty much anybody in the sort of top 10, if it's their day, they could come through and win it. Andrew Nye was sort of the previous 3-time world champion. How he won it 3 times in a row, nobody knows. But yeah, I certainly think I can win. But yeah, it's going to be tough.
Is it like I'm always amazed at this after an NFL game is over, where guys have been beating the living crap out of each other for 3 straight hours. And then after the game's over, they hug and they're friendly and they're smiling and they're having wonderful chats. Is it that way in your world as well?
Absolutely. I think especially one of the things I especially like about it is like the community is so sort of friendly. Everyone's sort of very happy to chat, share tips. And I know compared to some esports, which can have quite a toxic community, the community, it's so friendly, and yeah, it's just really nice being able to meet up once a year with friends from around the world and share in a common weird interest.
Are you training already for next year?
Not so much. I'm doing the sort of monthly battles. I'm sort of keeping myself fit, as it were. But yeah, I think I will go for a similar strategy this year of go for the sort of real heavy training sort of nearer to December.
Now, in our last minute here, I fessed up that I don't know anything about this. So could you give me some tips as to how a beginner like me could use Excel and for what?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's never been a better time to learn. And I think, for those looking to get interested in the competition, it can be sort of quite scary to sort of go in these sort of complex questions, but they're generally very approachable. And there's so many resources online. Like if you just search Microsoft Excel World Championship, there's so many people who have sort of presented how they approach things. And I think just by watching other people, you really can pick up a lot very quickly.
Okay. I'm very excited to meet a world champion here today. We have not too many world champions who ever come into the studio, so this is, it might not be a first, but it's a very short list.
Oh,
congratulations to you, and good luck in your title defense.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to meet you. Well done.
Thanks for having me on.
That is the agenda for Monday, March 24th, 2025. Tomorrow on the program, where does the NDP fit in this federal election campaign? I'm Jan Jaganaldan. Thanks for watching TVO, for joining us online at tvo.org. We'll see you again tomorrow.